Hey everyone! Today, we're diving into a superannuation story that's got a lot of Aussies up in arms. More than 15.5 million Australians are in the dark about who will inherit their superannuation when they die. It's a complex issue, but let's break it down and explore why this matters and what we can do about it. So, grab your popcorn and let's get started. First off, let's talk about Brooke Allen and her uncle's superannuation. Brooke loved her uncle like a father, and when he passed away, she thought his superannuation would be split equally between her and her cousin. But, as we all know, life doesn't always go according to plan. The super fund, CBUS, decided that the estranged son was the sole beneficiary, and Brooke was left with nothing. It's a real emotional roller coaster, and it highlights a deeper issue with superannuation inheritance. Superannuation is held in a trust managed by a superannuation fund trustee, which means the fund has the discretion to decide who inherits the member's money. This is a big deal, and it's not something many people are aware of. In fact, according to Super Consumers Australia, more than 15.5 million people have not nominated who will inherit their superannuation when they die. That's a lot of people who are in the dark about their own finances. Now, let's talk about the survey conducted by Super Consumers Australia. They asked people with money in super funds whether their fund had encouraged them to make a legally binding death benefit nomination. The results were eye-opening. Only 10% of people had been contacted by their fund about making a binding nomination, and 87% of people surveyed reported not having a binding death benefit nomination. That's a huge number of people who are potentially leaving their loved ones in the lurch. The impact of this can be devastating for the members' loved ones. It could mean years of waiting before the money is paid out, and it could also mean the money doesn't go where the member wants it to go. This is why it's so important for super funds to be more proactive in reminding members to make nominations and check their nominations are up to date. The regulator, ASIC, has found that most trustees only contact the member once before their nomination expires, and some send notices one day before the nomination lapses. Now, let's talk about the law. Under current laws, there are strict rules about who can be an eligible beneficiary, and a member can also nominate a legal personal representative. But, as we saw with Brooke Allen, the super fund has total discretion to decide who the beneficiary is. This is a big issue, and it's not something that should be left to chance. Martin Corden, for example, discovered that his nomination was not binding and that death benefit nominations generally lapse every few years. He's calling for the law to be changed so that who inherits your super can be paid out as part of your will, rather than relying on super funds to decide. He's not alone in this, and there are calls for mandatory timeframes for super funds to respond to claims. The federal government is considering whether to change the law to include mandatory time frames for super funds to respond to insurance claims, including death benefit claims. This is a big step, and it could make a huge difference in speeding up payouts. But, as we saw with Brooke Allen, it's not just about the law. It's also about super funds being more proactive and reminding members to make nominations and check their nominations are up to date. In conclusion, this is a complex issue, and it's not something that should be taken lightly. More than 15.5 million Australians are in the dark about who will inherit their superannuation when they die, and it's time for super funds to step up and do better. We need to make sure that our loved ones are taken care of, and that our hard-earned money goes where we want it to go. So, what do you think? What can we do to make sure our superannuation is in good hands?